This hungry old man exposed a millionaire's empty promises in a heartwarming life-changing moment. In the heart of Maplewood, amidst the buzz of daily life, stood Charlie, an 82-year-old war veteran with steely resolve. Every morning, he walked the old path to the local diner, his pride wrapped snugly around him like the well-worn jacket he wore. The diner was more than a place to eat, it was sanctuary. With laughter spilling from every corner, he shared stories of bravery and resilience with friends who had become family over the years. The smell of fresh coffee mingled with scrumptious bacon, and it felt like home. But now, underneath those hearty laughs, shadows crept. Life was getting harder. Families on the brink, struggling to afford basic meals, while across the street loomed a stick-straight, glossy new community center, the empty promises of Millionaire James. A flashy facade that gleamed in the sunlight yet hid nothing but disappointment. James proclaimed he had plans to bring jobs and prosperity, but as the months rolled on, it was clear, the town hadn't changed, only the emptiness in folks' bellies deepened. Charlie watched friends begin to falter, his heart tightening with every story he heard. That it was during a boisterous town hall meeting that Charlie, fueled by indignation and love for his town, finally pushed through his fear. He rose to confront James directly, his voice echoing with determination. "What about the promises?" he ventured, heart racing. The $1,000,000 smile of James flickered momentarily before a wave of dismissive platitudes washed over them, throwing the crowd into an uneasy applause. Charlie's chest tightened with defeat. How could they be so easily swayed? But he wasn't done yet. Over coffee and heartfelt whispers in the diner's back room, he gathered fellow residents. It was like magic, resilience bubbled and surged between them. They were ready to stand firm. Words of unity and strength filled the air, and Charlie felt reinvigorated. He wouldn't let despair take control, not for him, not for his neighbors, not for Maplewood. Days went by, and a plan began to take shape for a public event where James would appear. Tension thickened as they readied to confront the facade in front of all. On the day of the event, vibrant decorations adorned the hall, but Charlie's heart thudded with uncertainty. Would they see through the glimmer? Could he find the words? Just as he stood, eyes on him, Charlie's breath hitched. The crowd's gaze danced from James to him, but James' indifference felt palpable. The tension swelled, Charlie's heart raced faster. He took a deep breath. He wasn't just a hungry old man standing alone, he was the voice of hardworking families, the essence of Maplewood. Gathering strength from inside and the faces surrounding him, he took his stand. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. People are struggling out here. Charlie's voice cut through the air, igniting a fire of hope and indignation. Promises mean nothing without action. The crowd began to shift, realizing they weren't alone, ready to challenge the status quo. Would Charlie's brave heart be the spark that ignited their long-dormant spirit? As the murmurs grew louder, anticipation hung thick. Charlie looked around, eyes locking with his neighbors, united and fervent, and knew a battle for their dignity was just beginning. Would the heart of Maplewood rise in unison against the deception? The question hung in the air, pulsing like a heartbeat, as hope began to flicker bright amidst darkness, and the fight for true change loomed closer than ever. The hall buzzed with energy, voices rising and falling like the waves on a restless shore. Charlie stood firm, the weight of those hopeful gazes anchoring him in place. His palms were clammy, and he could feel a few familiar faces in the crowd registering the courage it took to stand up against wealth and empty rhetoric. They were there, their eyes wide with anticipation, ready to lean into whatever he was going to say next. Are we going to let him pretend everything is fine? Charlie pressed, his voice rising above the chatter. A nod here, a murmur there. It fueled him. With each supportive gesture, his heart embraced the swell of unity around him. He pointed towards James, who was half smirking, still looking like he couldn't believe anyone would dare challenge him. That building across the street is just a shiny surface. You all know it's been months since any real change. We need jobs, we need food, we need hope. What do we need? A voice called out from the crowd. Action. He shouted back, feeling the surge of collective emotion at his back. Action. Echoed the crowd, the word rolling like thunder. Charlie's heart raced as he realized he was igniting something far greater than just discontent. They were rallying, together, ready to challenge the facade James had built around his so-called promises. He could see determination carving lines on the faces of his neighbors. Let us ask him right now what he is going to do. Charlie pressed on, hands trembling slightly as he gestured toward James. Not another grand speech. We need details. James, finally sensing a shift, straightened. The swagger faded from his face, replaced by a veneer of annoyance. I assure you, we're working on many initiatives, he began, his voice echoing off the walls. But Charlie saw through it like glass. No more excuses. A woman shouted, and a ripple of agreement surged through the crowd. We want real answers. The tension in the room thickened, surrounding Charlie like a protective shroud. Together, they were stronger, and he could feel their collective spirit rise. Charlie inhaled deeply, his resolve sharpening. James, tell us how many jobs you've actually created. How many families have been fed because of your promises? For the first time, silence blanketed the room. James shifted uncomfortably, the spiffy smile now a tight line. We're still in the planning stages, he stammered, his charm failing as muffled murmurs of discontent filled the space around him. This isn't a stage, James, Charlie said softly yet firmly, this is our home. The crowd remained silent, each person absorbing the weight of his words. In that moment, something shifted in Charlie. He realized this wasn't just about confronting a millionaire. It was about awakening a community. They had lost faith, yes, but they could bring it back together. The flicker of hope he saw in their eyes mirrored his own, feeling that hope swell, Charlie called out. Let us show our community what unity looks like. Encouraged by Charlie, chants of Together We Rise filled the air, invigorating the crowd. But just as victory held the promise of hope, a new challenge loomed behind the scenes. James' eyes narrowed, and Charlie sensed danger lurking in the billionaire's smirk. What would he do next to quell this uprising? As the crowd erupted into cheers, Charlie's heart raced with exhilaration and dread. Had they truly taken a stand, or was this just the first battle in a looming war? The answer hung heavy in the air, just as the reality of the fight ahead settled in. And Charlie knew deep down that the hardest part was yet to come. What would the $1 million smile do when faced with a community too strong to break? The crowd was electric, a living, breathing entity fueled by hope. Charlie soaked in the energy that vibrated against his skin. This was the moment he'd dreamed of, a chance to stir the souls of his neighbors who felt invisible, sidelined by the glitz of James' polished facade. But even as their voices mingled in harmony, Charlie's gut twisted with uncertainty. James stepped closer to the edge of the stage, trying to reclaim the atmosphere that had ebbed from him. His smooth voice dripped like honey, designed to charm and placate. I think we can all agree that building a better community is a shared goal, he said, projecting confidence as he scanned the room. But the false charm didn't match the flicker of desperation in his eyes. The murmur of the crowd fell into a hush, broken occasionally by whispered confessions of doubt. Charlie felt the tension coil tightly. The battle was on the surface, but so much lay beneath. A voice broke through the silence. You've had years. Where are the results? A bald man in his 60s, who had worked in the factory for decades, emerged from the back, his weathered face etched with skepticism. Promises don't pay our bills. Charlie's heart surged at the older man's courage. He could see the collective apprehension shifting into something else, defiance. Inspired, he turned to the crowd. These people put in their time, their sweat. All we want is to be heard. We've lived through the lies, and we're done waiting for things to happen. No more platitudes, just action. To the truth. The man shouted, raising a fist. Charlie took courage from that. Yes. To the truth. Let's demand it. The crowd erupted, the chants echoing through the hall. Charlie watched as his neighbors shook off invisible shackles of resignation. The weight of years spent grieving unfulfilled promises blanketed them, but in that moment, determination began to pierce through the haze. Unity felt tangible and warm, wrapping around them all. But James stood rooted in his spot, his facial expression shifting as the crowd's excitement morphed from energy to anger. He knew his facade was cracking. This isn't productive, he stammered, his attempt at discipline slipping through the cracks. I came here to support you all. A laugh rang out, lifting everyone's spirits. Support us? By promising things you can't deliver? You're not a savior, James. You're the problem. The laughter rolled through the crowd, puncturing James' carefully crafted shield. Suddenly, there was another voice, softer but resonant. We need a voice for our hopes, a woman said from the front. Charlie recognized her, a nurse who went door to door helping families in need. We need to hold you accountable, James. And if you can't meet our needs, we need to find someone who can. Charlie felt the shift in the air, a spark heading toward a flame. That's right. He yelled, raising his hand. It's time we vote for change. We won't be satisfied with another empty speech. James' eyes flared with irritation. Fine. You think it's easy? You think change can happen overnight? Maybe it can if you just listen. Charlie replied, steeling himself against the billionaire's words like a barricade against the storm. The tension exploded again, the crowd pulsating with energy he could almost taste. The stakes had risen, and Charlie couldn't ignore the looming threat now burdening the promise of victory. James narrowed his eyes, growing desperate. What do you really want? Charlie paused, breathing heavily. Their voices had reached a climax, but now they needed something more profound. We want our lives back. The dignity we deserve. Will you join us or be against us? Charlie's challenge hung in the air, pregnant with possibility. And outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the city, reflecting both the day's struggles and the creeping uncertainty of what lay ahead. As the crowd chanted, "Together we rise," Charlie felt a flicker of doubt creep into his mind. Could their unity withstand the pressure? Would they find a way to continue fighting despite the tides threatening to wash them away? The future felt fragile, teetering on the brink of hope and despair. Could one man's conviction ignite real change, or would the lofty dreams they shared fade back into silence? And as Charlie looked at the faces brimming with hope and determination, he couldn't shake the chilling realization, the real battle was just beginning. Would they have the strength to face the unpredictable storm that was approaching? A roar of voices washed over the room as the crowd galvanized around Charlie, their passionate chants echoing against the walls, each shout reverberating with a mix of hope and skepticism. Charlie felt the energy pulse through him, overwhelming but electrifying. He locked eyes with the nurse, who nodded encouragingly, then turned to James, who looked like a cornered animal, desperate to reclaim control. James cleared his throat, but the crowd's noise drowned him out. With a grimace, he raised his hand, trying to silence them, but Charlie sensed the shift. The intensity of their shared discontent filled the air, pushing back against the polished veneer of James's confidence. What do we want? Charlie shouted, his heart racing with urgency. We want real change. Real change. The crowd echoed back, their fists raised like torches in the night. James retreated, his composure cracking. I've invested millions in this community. He yelled, but even he sounded unsure, the conviction in his voice dissipating. And what do we have to show for it? The bald man shouted again, his anger igniting the crowd further. "You think money can buy our trust? You've spent years talking while we've struggled." Charlie watched as faces brightened with conviction. This wasn't just about one person anymore, it was about everyone in that room, parents trying to make ends meet, kids dreaming of futures that felt out of reach, and friends who had endured too much for too long. "It's not just you," a soft voice interjected, this time from a teenage girl in the front row. "It's our future." Her words hung in the air, hitting everyone like a gentle but firm reminder. "If you care so much, why don't you show it?" James was running out of defenses. As he sputtered, Charlie found himself overwhelmed by the sheer power of their collective will. People weren't just chanting, they were standing up for years of being unheard and unseen, for nights spent worrying about how to pay the bills. "Let us hold him accountable," Charlie called out. "If he can't deliver, we'll find someone who will." The air changed, thickening with resolve. Charlie could practically feel the heartbeat of the crowd synchronizing to a single, unified purpose. Each person became part of a living tapestry woven by shared stories, the jobs lost, the families struggling. Then, out of nowhere, James lashed out, an animal instinct kicking in. "I'll make you a deal," he shouted, desperation clawing at his voice. "Let us work on a new proposal, and I promise to focus on your priorities." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Doubt hung in the air, mixed with hope. Did they want to buy into another promise? Charlie glanced around, taking in the expressions of the people he cared about. They had been through so much. Was this real? "Do we trust him?" Charlie asked, his heart racing, searching their faces. Doubt flickered among them, yet something deeper began to shift within him, a renewed sense of purpose. "He hasn't earned our trust." Someone yelled, the crowd rumbled with agreement, some shaking their heads, others clenching their fists. Charlie took a deep breath and stood taller. "Then let us tell him what we need. We deserve better than his empty words." The crowd's energy swelled again, stronger than before. They weren't just ready to fight for their beliefs, they were ready to demand respect. Suddenly, the nurse stepped forward, her voice unwavering. "Let us propose a community forum. A daily check-in where we can voice our concerns and hold you accountable, James." Heads turned and agreement flickered like a flame catching fire. Charlie felt a rush of hope wash over him, its warmth dispersing his doubts. "Yes," he exclaimed, amplifying her proposal. "Let us keep the dialogue going. No more silence." As the crowd cheered again, the sun finally dipped below the horizon, painting the room in rich shades of orange and purple. Victory was close. But beneath the surge of emotion, darkness still lingered. Would James truly listen? Could they maintain this unity amid the challenges they would undoubtedly face? The questions mingled in Charlie's heart, electrifying and terrifying. There was still a storm brewing beyond the horizon, and he realized, the path ahead would be far from easy. As the crowd erupted in unison, rallying around their next steps, Charlie felt the weight of possibility and doubt converge. What if their newfound strength was just the beginning of an even greater struggle? Would they be ready when the true test finally arrived? The crowd buzzed with a charged energy that felt almost tangible in the air. Charlie, standing at the front, felt a mix of exhilaration and anxiety bubble inside him. He could see the faces around him, illuminated by the last rays of sunlight slipping through the windows, each one a blend of determination and uncertainty. The community had found its voice, but what would come next? "Let us hear what he has to say," someone shouted, breaking the electrifying silence that had momentarily swept through the room. Charlie glanced at James, who was trying to regain his composure, wiping the sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. The millionaire seemed to struggle against the tide of discontent, as if caught in a riptide and gasping for air. "Fine," James stammered, trying to inject confidence into his voice. "I'll arrange a community forum. We can discuss what else." The shouts came from multiple angles now, fueled by anger and conviction. We're tired of talk. Charlie couldn't help but feel a wave of support thrum through him. The crowd wanted more than just words, they craved action. They had seen too many false promises, the kind that would fade away in the night, leaving them right where they started struggling, voiceless, unseen. "I'll put together a proposal to," James tried again, but the crowd was relentless now. "Stop. Just stop," a woman shouted. She pushed through the throng and stepped forward. Her hair was gray, and her hands trembled slightly, but the fire in her eyes burned bright. "You think this is about a proposal? This is about our lives. We don't need more promises. We need respect." The emotion in her voice rippled through the crowd like a wave. People nodded in agreement, chanting her words. Charlie felt a surge of warmth. This was what they needed to hear. They were all linked by a common thread, woven by experiences of loss, disappointment, and yearning for change. "Tell us how we fit in your plans," shouted another voice from the back, and the crowd roared its approval. James's face twisted in frustration, but Charlie stepped forward, driven by something deeper than himself. He understood that these moments of confrontation were where real change began. "Let us stop settling for anything," he raised his hand, grabbing everyone's attention, "and let us demand a meeting where we set the agenda. Let us map out the change we want to see." Cries of agreement filled the air, voices rising like a wave crashing against a shore. The atmosphere crackled with energy, and for a moment, it felt like anything was possible. Charlie turned to look at the nurse, who stood with a proud smile, just as the teenage girl from before joined the conversation again. "We want not just a dialogue, but a partnership. If he wants change, he has to earn it." James looked bewildered, glancing from one fierce face to another. The community had formed a wall of resolve, and Charlie knew they wouldn't back down easily. Something clicked inside him. This was bigger than just one leader or one fight, it was a movement, and he was at the center, but just as hope surged, doubt crept in like a shadow. What if James refused? What if they faced retaliation for demanding too much? Charlie's vision for unity faltered, but he clung to the warmth of the crowd around him, reminding himself of their strength. The night felt heavy with unspoken questions. As they conversed about their next steps and what the forum would entail, every heartbeat echoed in Charlie's chest. The path ahead shimmered with possibilities, each turn presenting the risk of heartbreak or triumph. "We have to be ready," someone murmured, bringing Charlie's focus back sharply. "This may only be the beginning." He took a deep breath, praying they'd be prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. Would they stand together as one? Would they have the endurance to fight for their dreams? And as he glanced around at the faces in the crowd, Charlie wondered if the truth about James was about to unfold. Was this millionaire's true nature finally going to be exposed? Charlie felt the pulse of the crowd thrum against his skin, a living heartbeat that surged and ebbed like the tide. Hope flickered between them, creating a bond he never knew could exist. The voices rallied around him, igniting a fire within. But with that warmth came a chill of fear. Would they really follow through? James cleared his throat, desperation etched on his features. "You think I'm just a money man? I'm trying to help." But his voice fell flat, drowned by shouts of frustration. "Help? By ignoring us?" The graying woman stepped closer, her voice steadier now, radiating strength. "We can't eat promises. We can't pay the bills with ideas." The fervor in the air tightened like a spring, each heart beating in concert. Charlie caught glimpses of determination mingled with anguish. People were sharing their stories, pointing out the loss, the pain, the deeds that led them here. There was so much to gain but so much more to lose if they turned away now. He glanced at James again, searching for a flicker of understanding in his eyes, but all he saw was irritation. Instead of stepping back, Charlie leaned forward, feeling the pulse strengthen. "Listen, James," he called out, his voice steady. "You have a chance to make a real difference here. You can meet with us, hear our ideas, and be actively involved." James looked at him, confusion mingled with flickers of apprehension, as if he were unsure how to respond to someone so small yet so large in spirit. "Will you? Will you meet with us and really listen?" The crowd fell silent. Charlie held his breath, the room teetering on the edge of uncertainty. James hesitated, glancing at the faces above, seeking permission from the universe or maybe from the ground itself, like he was trying to find solid footing. The questions hung in the air, awaiting a response. "Just do it!" Someone shouted from the back, igniting a ripple of agreement. "You promised change. Show us you care." A moment past tension wrapped itself around them, tight but electric. Charlie felt every vein in his body pulse with urgency. Expectations loomed like storm clouds overhead. James squared his shoulders as if bolstering his defenses against the crowd. "Fine!" he exclaimed, his voice rising above the murmurs. "We can meet. I'll organize something where we all sit down together. But I can't guarantee anything, you understand?" The crowd erupted into cheers, and for a moment, everything felt renewed, possibilities felt tangible again. But just as quickly, Charlie's heart skipped as he caught the glimmer of doubt in some eyes. What if this was just smoke and mirrors? A way to manipulate the community once again? Another voice broke through the cheer, a familiar one, a teenager, whose wide eyes glinted with both hope and suspicion. "We'll hold you to that, James. No more talk without action or real accountability." The strength in her words filled the space, fortifying the shared resolve. James nodded, albeit reluctantly. "I understand. You want more than just platitudes. You want transparency." "Yes," erupted from the crowd, voices rising to a crescendo. "We want respect and a chance to fight for what's ours." As James continued to speak, pouring himself into the obligation the crowd had thrust upon him, Charlie listened but felt something shift within him. Maybe they didn't need just James to fulfill their dreams. They might need to look within and among themselves, drawing strength from each other to enforce the change they craved. The crowd began to disperse, a convoluted mix of hope and skepticism clouding their expressions. Charlie felt it in the air, the unexpected weight that settled in the room. They had opened a door, but what lay beyond felt both thrilling and terrifying. Had they stirred the waters too much, risking the wrath of a powerful figure? As he turned away, a soft voice caught his ear, piercing through the chatter. "Charlie," the nurse called out, her face illuminated by the last of the light fading through the windows. "We need to talk. I think there's something you should know about James. Something that could change everything." A chill raced down his spine as he turned toward her. "What do you mean?" But she simply shook her head, her expression troubled. And right there, in that moment, Charlie realized that there were more layers to this battle than he ever imagined. What truths lay buried just beneath the surface? Charlie's heart raced as he moved closer to the nurse. Her eyes held a weight, something heavy and unsettling. The crowd around them slowly diminished, but he felt frozen, locked in this moment. "What is it?" he pressed, his voice barely above a whisper. The noise of laughter and chatter faded into the background as if the world had shrunk down to just the two of them. "It's about James," she replied, glancing over her shoulder as if afraid someone might overhear. "I've worked with him for years. I've seen how he operates, and there's something you should know. He's not what he seems." Charlie's pulse quickened. Was this the revelation they needed? The voice inside him urged caution. Trust was fragile. "What do you know?" She took a deep breath, steeling herself. "James has a reputation, a pattern of leaving communities like ours with promises and nothing else. I thought maybe he was changing, but I'm not so sure anymore. He's got investors behind him, big names. They care about profit, not people." The room felt colder as her words settled in. Charlie had sensed James' discomfort, but this was more than a man struggling with his role. It was a potential betrayal waiting to unfold. But why would he agree to meet with us then? If he's just playing us? She bit her lip, her brow furrowed with worry. I think he sees the potential backlash from this crowd. If he doesn't at least try to appear engaged, he could lose everything. The pressure it might force him into doing the right thing. Or he might just manipulate it. It's all connection and leverage for him, and we're just a stepping stone. The nurse's words curled around his heart, tightening like a vice. Could he trust James? Charlie could already feel the swell of uncertainty gathering in the pit of his stomach. He glanced back toward the crowd, still dispersing, bubbling with the aftermath of their enthusiasm. Hope mingled with fear, as if the air itself were rippling with questions. Charlie. A familiar voice sliced through the fog of uncertainty. It was his neighbor, Mr. Thompson, the elderly man who had sat in silence at the town meetings until that moment. What's this about James? What's really going on? The urgency in Mr. Thompson's eyes mirrored Charlie's own anxiety. The other neighbors, a few lingering in place, turned their attention toward him. Here was the trust they had placed in their fragile alliance, all centered around one man who could shatter or sustain it. I'm working on it, Charlie replied, fighting to keep his own voice steady. But we need to be careful. We can't let our hopes blind us to the reality that he might not have our best interests at heart. But we have to let him know we're not going to just stand by, Mr. Thompson insisted, puffing out his chest. We've waited too long for someone to listen. If he has more of the same, we need to call him on it. Charlie nodded, the fire igniting again within him. They had indeed opened the door, but now it was crucial to understand what lay beyond. They couldn't just rely on James' words, they needed to stand together as a community. He's meeting with us soon, Charlie said, looking from face to face. Let us be ready. Bring your stories. Bring your questions. We deserve answers. Ambivalence hung in the air, but there was also an undercurrent of solidarity, a shared understanding that change would not come easy. As the crowd began to shift, voices overlapping with plans and strategies, Charlie felt a fleeting moment of clarity. It was up to them, their stories, their connections. That was what would ensure real transformation, but just as this sense of unity blossomed, a sudden crash echoed from the shadows of the alley nearby. All heads turned toward the sound, confusion rippling through the group. What was that? Someone murmured, eyes wide. Charlie felt a heavy weight settle in his gut. What lay hidden in those shadows? And more importantly, how would it intertwine with the fragile alliance they were trying to build? With hearts pounding and the sense of danger lurking nearby, Charlie and the crowd took a step toward the unknown. Would they still find strength in each other, or would this new threat pull them apart? As the weight of uncertainty closed in, Charlie felt the flicker of dread ignite into a burning question. Could this be the moment everything changes, or are they about to face another obstacle that could shatter their hopes once again? Charlie's heart kept pounding as he tried to peer into the alley. Shadows danced, shapes merging into one another, confusing and unsettling. The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, anxiety spreading like wildfire among his neighbors. Should we check it out? Someone whispered, fingers twitching nervously. No. We need to stick together, Charlie insisted, trying to keep the group focused. This could be a distraction. But Mr. Thompson had already taken a step forward, the determination etched on his weathered face. We can't just ignore it. Something isn't right. The elderly man's voice held a weight of authority, and Charlie felt the compulsion to follow him. The others began to drift toward the alley, cautiously breaking away from the safe circle they had formed. Stay back. Charlie urged, but it was too late. One by one, they began stepping toward the unknown, apprehension swirling around them like a thick fog. As they moved, the shadows finally parted to reveal a hunched figure on the ground. An old man, his clothes ragged and dirt-streaked, was clutching a crumpled piece of paper. Their collective gasp echoed in the air. Are you okay? Charlie called out, his heart racing for an entirely different reason now. The old man raised his head slowly, revealing deep lines etched with despair. His eyes were cloudy but still bright with a glimmer of life. Help me please, he croaked, his voice shaky and filled with desperation. Charlie's instinct kicked in. Step forward and lift him up. But the crowd hung back, uncertain. What do we do? Someone asked, shifting nervously as all eyes remained glued to the old man. Before he could answer, a clamor of rage erupted from within the crowd. Look at him. We're fighting for our community, and there are people here, real, living people in need. Mr. Thompson's voice boomed, and it seemed as if Charlie's heart beat in time with the rising anger. Get the medics. Someone shouted, a reminder of the nurse who had warned about James. Charlie's mind flashed with her words. Was this man a part of a greater scheme, a pawn in the hands of someone like James? But as he looked into the old man's eyes, he saw not merely a victim but someone who embodied their fears and struggles. Help is coming, Charlie told the man, kneeling beside him, voice low and steady. We're with you. The old man's trembling hand reached toward Charlie, the paper slipping from his grasp and landing with a soft thud. Charlie's breath caught, the dull thud igniting something deep inside. He picked it up carefully and unfolded the parchment. A scrawled message, fading but legible, caught his eye, a plea that held more weight than any words uttered before. Is this about? We must listen. Mr. Thompson interrupted, frustration bubbling within him as he stepped close until the two were eye to eye. You see. We can't ignore this. It unearths everything we're fighting for. We need to act. Charlie's mind spun, the fight against James suddenly more than just about community promises. It was about the raw, vulnerable lives caught in the dangerous web of greedy ambitions. As murmurs arose in the crowd, voices filled with fear and determination, Charlie's thoughts quieted. You're right, he said, rising to his feet, the message clenched in his hand. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about joining those who have fallen through the cracks. The crowd responded, a shift towards a new purpose fueling them, yet just as hope filled the air again, the alley exhaled a deeper shadow, hinting that their newfound resolution might come at a cost. What else would they uncover? What challenges lurked just beyond the edge? With the fragile alliance hanging in the balance, Charlie faced the people with renewed conviction, knowing that this was just the beginning. Let us gather our strength together. We owe it to everyone to speak up, but we must tread carefully. As they moved to help the elderly man, Charlie sensed more than anticipation. It was a quiet storm, transformative yet uncertain. And as they ushered him into the light, a new question lingered in the depths of their hearts: just how far were they willing to go to protect what was theirs? Charlie's breath hitched as he knelt beside the old man, the weight of the crumpled message heavy in his hand. The crowd had formed a makeshift barrier, wary yet eager, drawn together by a shared sense of purpose. Each face reflected a mix of determination and fear, silently asking, what will we uncover next? What's your name? Charlie asked, keeping his voice soft. Arthur, the old man murmured, his voice shaky but steadying as he met Charlie's gaze. Arthur, we're going to get you help, Charlie promised, glancing back at the group. Can someone call for the medics? I will. A young woman, her face flushed with exertion, pulled out her phone and hurried away, urgency propelling her. Meanwhile, Mr. Thompson leaned closer, studying the paper Charlie had unfolded. What does it say? He urged, his voice barely a whisper, heavy with anticipation. Charlie glanced at the writing again. It was shaky, the letters almost desperate. The message spoke of corruption and neglect, of promises made by James that had been forgotten the moment the ink dried. It's a plea for help, Charlie said, the realization hitting him hard. What does it mean for us? Someone in the crowd asked, unease threading through their voices. It means we have allies, Charlie replied, locking eyes with Mr. Thompson. Arthur is proof that people are suffering. We can't just fight for our homes anymore. We need to fight for everyone. As murmurs of agreement spread, Arthur shifted, struggling to find a more comfortable position on the cold ground. I overheard them, he gasped, drawing breath between words, talking about a plan to tear it all down. What plan? Charlie pressed, feeling adrenaline surge within him, as if every nerve ending had come alive. With labored breaths, Arthur recounted what he had witnessed: a conversation between developers discussing the expulsion of families from their homes. Charlie felt his heart sink. This wasn't just about houses, it was about lives being uprooted once again. The young woman returned with the medics, breathing heavily but filled with resolve. "I called them. They're on their way." She looked at Arthur, concern etched into her features. "You're going to be all right." "Thank you," Arthur whispered, gratitude shining in his dim eyes. His hand dropped to clutch his tattered coat as he looked at the gathering crowd filled with both compassion and courage. In that moment, Charlie felt a spark ignite within him. This was at the moment where fear could transform into something greater than themselves. The fight wasn't just about standing up against James. It was about standing beside those who had no voice, about rallying everyone together. "Listen to me," Charlie called out, his voice rising above the chatter. "This isn't just about Arthur or this street. It's about everyone facing the monster that wants to tear apart our community. We can't let it happen." The crowd erupted into cheers, emboldened by his words, sparked by the spirit of solidarity sweeping through them. But along with their newfound courage came a looming question: what sacrifices would they have to make to protect their home and those like Arthur? As Arthur was gently lifted by the medics, Charlie's instinct told him that this fight was just beginning. The shadows in the alley seemed to thicken as if urging them onward, revealing the burden yet to come. "Let us take a stand, not just for ourselves, but for each other," Charlie cried, feeling the momentum shift from fear to fierce advocacy. The power of collective voices resonated deeply in the night air. Just as their newfound resolve solidified into a mission, Charlie's phone buzzed in his pocket. Pulling it out, he saw a familiar number: James's. The invitation was clear. Would he dare answer or let the question hang heavy in the air? As the crowd rallied around him, Charlie felt the boundaries of bravery stretch as he faced the path ahead. Leaning back against the wall of the alley, he understood they were standing on the edge of a deeper fight. Would he be ready for what came next? Charlie stood in the flickering light of the street lamp, wrestling with the phone in his hand. The invitation from James felt heavy, almost like a trap. The noise of the crowd surged around him, a living tapestry of hopes and fears interwoven as they braced themselves for the unknown. But now, they had a chance, a true chance. "Are you going to take it?" Mr. Thompson's voice broke through his thoughts, brimming with curiosity and concern. The crowd hushed, drawn to the tension, all eyes on Charlie. He could feel their collective energy building, waiting for his decision. "James needs to understand that we're united," Charlie said finally, his voice steady. "Not just for ourselves, but for everyone who has been let down before." The murmurs in the crowd shifted to agreement. "Join him, Charlie. Show him we mean business," Mr. Thompson urged, his eyes shining with a hard-won determination. "All right," Charlie nodded, heart pounding. "Let us see what he has to say." With a deep breath, he pressed the green button and held the phone to his ear. "James." "It's Charlie," he said, keeping his voice calm, though it felt like an earthquake beneath his feet. "Charlie. I'm glad you called. I think we can find some common ground." James' overly smooth voice washed over him, deceptive as a summer rain. "Common ground? We'll see about that," Charlie replied, trying to mask the fire igniting inside him. "You need to bring something real, a plan. Not just words wrapped in pretty packages." James cleared his throat hesitantly, as if Charlie's straightforwardness took him by surprise. "I assure you, we'll discuss actionable items at the forum. I want to understand your priorities. Your community has potential. Potential doesn't fill bellies or pay rent," Charlie emphasized, his resolve hardening. "We need jobs and meals. We need real change you've promised and failed to deliver." "Of course, Charlie. I appreciate your passion. Let us explore solutions together," James responded, tension apparent in his tone now. "Can we say this is our first step?" Charlie's instincts flared. "Only if you take it seriously." No more playing games, James. The town deserves better than that. I'll see you, then, James said, the hint of urgency edging into his voice. Disconnecting, Charlie turned to his neighbors, excitement rippling through them. We're taking this meeting to demand action. It's time he sees we're more than just a project to him. Then let us make sure we show up, all of us. A voice called out from the crowd, enthusiasm resonating through their shared purpose. As night fell, the air inside Charlie's home felt electric with anticipation. The community gathered, hearts and minds ready to unite their stories, fears, and resolve. We can't afford to be timid anymore, Charlie began. We're an army of voices, a tapestry woven from years of struggle. We're not here just for ourselves, but for anyone who has gone unheard. And next week, in that meeting, we're going to stand together. A chorus of nods rippled through the room, faces illuminated by determination. Mr. Thompson stood up, his voice resonating with gravel. Let us write down our demands and our stories. We'll make sure they're heard, loud and clear. Everyone needs to understand what we've endured, the nurse chimed in, her eyes fierce. We have to give James the undeniable truth of our lives. Preparations swirled around Charlie, papers gathered, stories shared, every heartfelt narrative igniting the room. The threads of their lives intertwined in a profound way, reinforcing their bonds. On the day of the meeting, a palpable strength saturated the hall. The mood was charged, like lightning hanging in the air. Charlie, filled with purpose, walked to the front. The crowd was with him, united like never before, their chins held high, ready to take on whatever James would throw at them. Every face captivated with hope, every heartbeat synchronized to the pulse of determination. James arrived, a polished veneer masking the tension underlying his demeanor. The air shifted as he stepped forward, confidence exuding from him. Yet, Charlie could see the flicker of apprehension in his eyes. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for gathering, James began with a rehearsed charm, but the collective presence of the crowd felt like a tidal wave behind Charlie, ready to crash if provoked. Let us get to it, shall we? Charlie cut in, feeling the moment rise like a cresting wave. We're here to discuss the reality of our lives. We need solutions, not more empty words. The crowd erupted in encouragement. Let us get the ball rolling. We want to know how many families you've helped and what plans you have to provide jobs that actually sustain this community. A voice rang out, igniting an uproar of agreement. A flicker of irritation danced in James' eyes. I've been working tirelessly with the city council. We have plans in place. Plans that mean little to a family wondering where their next meal comes from. Charlie retorted, feeling a swell of energy surge from the crowd again. He continued, you need to show us the details. Can you commit to bringing about change that lasts? Our community deserves specifics. James faltered, the confidence wavering as mumbles of discontent rippled through the audience. For the first time, he genuinely seemed caught off guard, as if the facade he wore was cracking right before their eyes. Finally, Charlie stepped forward, willing to risk it all. This is what we want: transparency, action plans, timelines. And if you genuinely care about Maplewood, you'll bring forth the real changes we need. James looked around, the sweat visibly pooling on his brow. The reality closed in around him like a palpable fog, revealing the truth of who they all were. It's going to take time, he began, voice stumbling. Time we can't afford, Charlie bluntly declared. We don't want the same old song, we're ready for action. The people of Maplewood demand a change, not another pretty speech. The rage in the room swelled, but more than that, a buoyant hope filled the space. Charlie felt it with every beat of his heart. This was their moment. Just then, Arthur emerged from the corner, a true testament to their cause. You can't ignore us any longer, he said hoarsely, the community rallying around him. We need a future that doesn't leave anyone behind. And there it was, the moment of transformation. The crowd surged forward, arms raised, unified as they shouted in one voice, no more empty promises. James finally crumbled under the weight of the collective will. He raised his hands, a gesture of surrender mixed with a hint of urgency, yet a shadow of realization flickered across his face. Fine. Let's talk specifics. I'll show you what I can do, but you need to give me a chance, he stuttered, feeling the resistance shift under the overwhelming power of a united front. Charlie felt the rush of victory sweep through as applause resounded within the walls. They stood together, no longer just individuals fighting against one man, but a community transformed. And as they left that hall, Charlie realized this fight had opened the door to something deeper than he ever imagined, a chance for authentic change, not just for them, but for generations to come. We're just getting started, he murmured under his breath, the weight of possibility settling in his heart. For Maplewood was not just standing still, they were boldly stepping into the sunlight, ready to face whatever would come next. Now was the moment to inspire and ignite real change. So listen up. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next chapters of our journey. Don't wait not even one more second to share this story with at least 5 friends who need hope. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us spread this movement. And comment right below with your thoughts and feelings about this powerful conclusion. It matters. Together, we rise.